Hello everyone, and welcome to the recording for week two, which is January 14th through the 20th. And before we jump into that, I want to point you in the direction of this How to Be Successful 8-minute video that I have posted. Click on that, you can go in and read, and it just talks about the basics of how you can be successful in online school. We have 1 week behind us already, 8 weeks remaining. So you want to make sure you stay up to date, but hopefully this video can help you out a little bit. So check on that when you get a chance. Another couple reminders: index of class recordings. I'll always put the recordings right in this index, but of course they're also listed in each of the units on the left side. So jumping into week two. Week two, you can see we're going into project 1, which is called Hello World. And as usual, I break things down into 2 days. So for the Tuesday activities and the Thursday activities. So you can do them any way you want. Some students decide that they'll finish the Tuesday work by the end of Tuesday, and then they'll finish the Thursday work by the end of Thursday. Some students start the Tuesday work on Tuesday, and then start the Thursday work on Thursday. However you want to do it is fine with me, but the goal would be to get your work submitted by Friday, the end of the week. Now I do have the dates, like 14th through the 20th is Monday through the Sunday, but ideally if you turn things in by the Friday, then you'll stay much more up to date, and you won't have zeros in the grade book come the weekend, because usually Friday afternoons is when I add zeros if students haven't turned in work. All right, moving on to week two. So we'll go on down, and we're in the project 1 area. And the way that I am setting up the course, you're going to have notes at the top item. And I'm going to change these a little bit because I've changed my folders a little bit. But basically, you want to always look at that notes because it tells you specific things about what might be happening with the work for that week. So one thing I say, there are 4 labs in the project. They take you through the work step by step with a presentation. Follow the steps exactly. And then assignment work 1 is worth 65 points, not 20 like it says. So I've adjusted the point totals a little bit. So make sure you read all of this stuff, the project notes, before you jump into the lessons. And of course, the lesson recording, that's what you're watching now, and I always post the recordings. The Class Connect write-up, here are all the questions for the write-ups. We'll pay attention to those as we go through the project. And of course, the first question, how can a flowchart be useful? So now we're going to jump into project 1. So project 1 is what's called Hello World, and this is just a simple project where you end up putting this information on a screen, but it gives you the basic steps in programming. And remember, as you go through the work in this class, I explained it in last week's presentation, but whenever you go into these demonstrations like this, you can always set the table of contents. Like if you're halfway through or you've done lab 1 and lab 2, but you want to go to lab 3, just move down like this. Then you can click into lab 3 and go into that, so you don't have to go do things sequential or in order. If you want to move ahead, you can do that. But of course, for this presentation, I'm going to go through the whole thing. So the first thing to take a look at here is that in this project, we're going to open and save a C++ project, put comments in and use a library, use this what's called standard namespace, learn what the main function is, and print text to a screen. And here's the project preview, so this is what the project will look like. And the first thing we need to think about is what a flowchart is. A flowchart is a picture of a process, and what it does is flowcharts help you plan your project. So that would be the answer to that first Class Connect write-up, the usefulness of a flowchart. It helps you plan your project or plan the steps in carrying out commands. So you can see this would be the flowchart for your alarm clock and waking you up in the morning, right? Have I pressed the snooze button 3 times yet? No, then I'm going to hit the snooze button again. Then after you do it 3 times, your answer is going to be yes, then that means you get out of bed. So that's just kind of a fun flow chart. But if we move ahead, you can see that this is the flow chart for this basic program we're going to make today. So this program, you're going to run it, and it's going to print hello world, and that's the end of it. So this is just obviously a basic one because there's no input or anything like that. Okay, moving on. And we want to go back to the Class Connect write-up to see what our questions are. So I click on that. And remember, on these write-ups, all you'll do is just highlight this whole thing, all that information. Then you right-click, copy, as it says here. Paste it into a word processor document. Find the answers as you watch this recording. Write your answers directly below each item, checking your spelling and all that. Then once you have them all answered in the word processor, highlight it all, then paste it as text in the Dropbox, not as an attached file. And I'd recommend you save that as like week 2 project 1 write-up. Save that word processor file. That way, in case you don't get it pasted in properly, then you'll be able to do it later. Okay, in lab 1, as you go through this, what does CPP mean at the end of a file name? And why do programmers use comments in programs, and what symbols make a comment? So we're going back into the project, and now I'm going to use my table of contents because I want to go right into lab number 1, don't I? Okay, in lab 1, so we're going to learn how to start our first program and to save it. And in C++, the programs you write are called projects. So when you're in C++, you open this up and you can see your recent projects. You can open them and such. So open Visual Basic. So here's the steps. So the great thing about the way this course is set up, you can click on the blue writing and it shows you exactly how you would do it on your computer. Of course, your computer may be a different operating system, so you might use the Windows Start and then go up and find Visual Basic or Visual C++. Then you can open the Hello World project. And this will take you through the steps on how to open the Hello World project. And these steps will only work if you created the exact folders like you were told to back in the first week. So you can see that you'll go to your C drives, you'll go to the profiles you set up. Once you go into profiles, you click on your username. Then you go into C++, double click Hello World, and then you open up the .vcprog file. Now again, this will only work if you set up the profiles the right way you're supposed to last week, so you need to make sure that is set up correctly. CCP or CPP files. .cpp is the extension for C++ files, so that's what CPP means. That's the extension for C++ files. That way you'll know the types of files they are, right? So when you open hello.cpp, so they have you do. So again, I'm going right through this step by step. And here you're going to go through and you're going to open it from what's called the source files. These are the resource files that you were told to download last week. Comments. Comments are really important because what they do is they explain to the programmer or somebody else who looks at the program, the coding of the program, what the steps are doing. And you can see that comments use the double slash. So anytime you need to put in comments, you hit double slash and then you type the words, the comments you want. And the comments, when the computer sees the double slash, it does nothing. That line, it's like the line is invisible to the computer. But for the programmer or anybody looking at the code you wrote, then they'd be able to see what's going on. And the purpose of the comments is to explain the code to themselves and other people. So comments are extremely valuable in programming. A few more steps on the work you'll be doing with this Hello World program. Again, this walks you right through it. So it tells you a little bit about comments, so you can answer the question there. Now you're going to use that Hello World program that you opened earlier. So you have your workspace right here. You can see your page should be exactly like this. And you're going to put a comment in. Hello World by, and then type your name. So do these exact steps to make sure you're on the exact tab and everything will work right. This class is really important that you follow these presentation steps exactly. Then you go to save it. And you want to save it often in case your computer crashes, you don't lose your work. Save early and often. So this walks you through saving the hello.cpp, and there's how you save it. Now you can check your work. So the great thing about the presentations in this course, they remind you of what your work should look like. So that's lesson 1, complete, or lab 1. Now moving on to lab 2, and let's go look at the Class Connect write-up. And of course in lab 1 we answered these questions. Okay, lab 2, what is a command in programming? And in programming, what is a library? So that's what we want to pay attention to in lab 2. So here we are. So in lab 2, they're going to have you open up the Hello World project. So again, this walks you right through exactly how to do it. And it's going to be in your profiles, username, your username, and then C++. So you'll open up that program. Okay, a command is an instruction you give the computer. So you can't have a computer program if you don't use any commands, right? So that's the answer to that Class Connect write-up question. So you can see right here the commands are in blue. Using namespace, that's a command. And then the number signed, and then in the word include, those are commands. And programmers, they put comments before commands. You can see right here that this comment says that I'm using standard namespace. So you can see the comments right before the commands. So it is inserting a comment. So if you've opened up your Hello World program, you're going to go ahead and insert a couple of comments in there, just like that. Now this is some code that they're going to have you look at just to help you with this program. It says it's not included in the normal C++ projects, but they've just given you some code here to help you get started with the work you're going to be doing. So go ahead and open that starter code text file. So just double click on it, it'll open up for you. So they're just going to have you take a look at that coding and use it with your work. Now, a library is really important. A library is a collection of commands that are used for a specific purpose. So you can see here that this is called the I/O stream library, or input-output stream library, and these are a couple of codes in that library. The include command tells the computer that you're going to include a library. And you'll see as you move along where these things go in. You're not going to be expected to know exactly how they work right now. But the nice thing about once you tell the computer you're going to include the library, then the computer will expect the specific commands that go along with that library, the common commands. So you're going to go ahead and do the include command in this program that you've started already. So you can see we're doing a comment. And you're putting in all of that work, all of the work that they say here. And just move on down. You can see there are about 5 or 6 steps here. So do exactly what they say, and you're going to do great. Now, if you do a paste and then you want to take that out, if something's wrong, then do Control-Z, and that'll undo your previous command. The I/O stream library, I mentioned before, that's about input and output. And you use that library when you're ever going to have input to go into the computer or output to come out of the computer. Like CIN means input, COUT means output. Now they're going to have you edit that include command that you created earlier. So do exactly what they're doing right here. So what they're doing, you're actually replacing library to include, you're replacing that with the word IOStream. A namespace, that's a group of commands. And the thing about namespace is that it actually tells the computer what to expect a little bit later as you start going through the program. And again, don't get hung up on, well, I don't know what namespace is. You'll see how it's used as you go through this, and you'll learn about it. And when you use standard namespace, then you can much more easily do your programming with the proper commands. Makes life much easier. The using command, that tells the computer which namespace you're using. So this says you're using the standard namespace. So then the computer will expect when it sees certain commands below here, it knows they're in that namespace and it knows what to do with those commands. So now they're going to have you insert the using command. So again, like you've been doing, follow the exact steps that they have here, and it will work out great for you. These presentations are obviously very useful. Save the program. You know how to save by now. Check your work. I mean, here's what yours should look like if you did everything the way that they told you to do it. So that's lab 2. We've looked at the include command and the using command and standard namespace. So let's go back to the write-up. And in lab 2, what is a command in programming? What is a library? We looked at both of those. I gave you the answer to both of those. In lab 3, what is the purpose of the main function? What is the count command used for? So now we're going into lab 3. Now in this lab, we're going to add commands that will print the text for us. So you're going to open the Hello World project. You ought to know how to do that by now. You'll probably find it in your profiles. So profiles folder that you set up back in week 1. The main function of your program is the part that the computer runs. So the computer, it'll look for that main function, and once it finds it, then it says, well, I need to run what is part of that main function. It says right here, if there isn't a main function, the program won't work. So the answer for that Class Connect write-up is the main function is the part of your program that the computer runs. That's what the main function is. And you can see all the commands in the main function go between an open and a closing bracket. So you have to have these opening and closing brackets. You can see the opening bracket, closing bracket. And you use a main function in every program you write. So now you're going to insert the main function into that work that you've been doing. So you do exactly what they say here, follow all of these steps, and it will work out nicely for you. Input is for information that you send to the computer or that the user sends to the computer, and output is what comes out. So this one we're not going to have any input because the words hello world are part of our coding, but the output will be the word hello world on the screen. Now if we were told, even though the computer runs and it says type your message, then we typed hello world and then it showed up, that would be hello world as input and output. The count command. The count is the command for output, and really what these, like C means that it's C++, and then so C out, C++ out. So the out command tells it what to print on the screen. So you can see down here it says, first there's a comment, print text to the screen, and then it says, actually tells the computer, print or make your output be the words hello world. So now you're going to insert the out comment. So follow the directions. Then you're going to put the out command. Do exactly what it says, and it will work out great for you. Then once you have that calc command in there, then you're going to edit it, because the calc command said this will appear on the screen, but you're going to replace that with the words hello world. So this is what your whole program looks like right now through the 3 labs. Save it. By now you should know how to save. Check your work. This is what your program should look like. If it doesn't look like that, then you need to go back and fix it. So that's lab 3. We inserted the main function. We used the count so it would print on the screen. So now we're moving into lab 4. Let's go back to the write-up. And move into lab 4. It says, what is the term used for process to convert your code to machine language? List a couple of common bugs and explain what debugging is. Okay, so let's go back to, there's lab 4. We're just about finished with this, so hang in there. So machine code, that's the code that the computer reads. You're typing in human words, human language. But you can see that the human language you type in, like the words hello world, they get transferred into machine code, and machine code is ones and zeros. It's called binary code. That's how the computer knows what it's supposed to do. Now the way that gets converted is a process called compiling. So compiling changes the code that you type, the human words you type, into machine code. Once it's compiled, then it can run the program. Now C++ has a compiler. We don't have to compile it separately. It does it for us automatically. So you're going to open Hello World. So we're going to start the same process you've gone through before. So working on the same program. And before you can run a program, you need to make sure there are no errors. So a bug is an error in a code, and some common bugs. Forgetting the semicolon at the end of the line. So you need to have semicolons at the end of certain lines. Or lowercase and uppercase, mixing those up. That can be an error. So those are 2 common bugs. Now the process that the computer would go through to tell you if you have any bugs or not is called debugging. When you debug, the compiler, the C++ compiler, says, hey, something's wrong here. I don't see a semicolon, or I don't see a bracket. And it'll come back and tell you that there's an error. Sometimes it'll tell you what the error is. So that's debugging. But you can also debug yourself, and you debug, like on all of these, they show you at the end of the lab what your program should look like. You can look at your program, you can debug that way. So you can see here when you're in C++, you click debug at the top, then start debugging, or you can just hit the F5 command. Now this says if you get something that says your project is out of date, click yes to build it. That starts compiling the program. So always choose the yes to build it. And they'll give you the errors. So go on through the debugging process. So you want to check your work, compare your code, and make sure your code looks like this code. It'll tell you everything right here that you should look for. So now to run a program, so once you debug, then you go up to debug, start without debugging, because you've already debugged it. To pause a program, that's a command you can put in. Like in this one, hello world, you'll notice when you run it that hello world flashes on the screen and then the text box goes away. Here you're going to put the pause command in, just like that. You can see down here what it looks like. Put the pause command in, and that will print hello world on the screen. Then it will pause until you hit a key on the keyboard. So you'll go ahead and insert the pause command. So do exactly what they say here, just like you've been doing. So insert pause. Check your work, make sure it looks exactly like this. Make sure you have your opening and closing brackets in your main area. Then finally, this talks about the program you have. The one that you'll run, you can run your programs within C++, but you can also have it as an exe file, and you don't even have to open up C++ to run it. That's called an executable file. So you go to My Computer, navigate to your profile, your username, and then under Debug, you'll see that you have the exe file that you can run. So you don't even have to be in C++ to run it. Now once you have the hello world, so we've done all of these, we've compiled, debugged all of that. So now, next thing you're moving into is the assignment for the week, for this project. And for the assignment for this project, you're going to do something similar to hello world. You're going to create a program that prints text on the screen. You're going to print text similar to this on the screen. So you can use your C++ program, the one hello world you did, and it's going to be very similar to that. So now I'll go over here. Let's look at the Class Connect Writeup, make sure I answered the last few questions. We did, right? The term used for process to convert, we talked about that. Common bugs, and explain what debugging is, we talked about those. Good. So now let's go into assignment 1. And assignment 1, remember, it says, hey, you already created the hello world. Now follow the instructions below to add to the program using what you learned in this project. Then you'll submit that, the project folder, to the instructor. So create the program following the project directions. So in your hello world project, add an empty line before the system pause. So add an empty line right before the system pause. Copy the count command into that area, paste that code into the empty line you just created. Change the code so it prints a different message. So you could say, hello often, or awesome world, or something like that. Change the code in the second line with the count command so it prints a different message, like it's going to be a great day. Compile and run your program. Review the grading rubric to make sure it meets the guidelines. Submit your hello world project folder to your instructor. So if you've done all of this right, what you'll do is you'll go to right here. I'll open up mine, go to desktop, and mine looks a little bit different from yours, but it'll be very similar. So I'll go to, actually not to desktop, I want to go to C drive. So C drive, practice profiles is what I use. Yours is called profiles, C++. And then your hello world folder, you'll right click, send to zip. And once you have that as a zip, then you take that zip, and that zip is what you submit in the Dropbox for the work. So again, you're going to do the work on the hello world, the assignment 1 project. You're going to do that work, and then you go into your profiles, find your hello world folder, because that's where all your work is saved, right? You should have all of this plus all this stuff in there. So then you'll just right click on it, send to compress zipped, and then that compressed zip is what you send to me. I'm going to go ahead and delete those couple of zips. I don't want to mess things up. That's what you submit. That's the work for this week, and you can see how you're going to get graded. This is worth, it says worth 20 points. I think it's worth more in the grade book. I don't remember exactly how much. Maybe I changed it to 60 or something like that, but that's the work that you're going to be doing. Pretty simple, isn't it? So I look forward to your work coming in. And I just want to go back one last thing, go back to the end of this whole project presentation and just show you that when you finish, assignment 1, you're going to end up with something that prints this on the screen. So really just substituting a couple of lines into the hello world, aren't you? Very easy to do. And I would call this, instead of, well, actually, I guess it tells you to call it hello world, so that's fine. Yeah, just keep that name. Okay, I look forward to your work coming in, and thanks for watching. Get the Class Connect Write-Up done, get this assignment done. I bet you can knock all of this stuff out in less than an hour or hour and a half. Hey, thanks everyone. Bye.